DBS is dead. Long live DBS. So we got some really interesting news Monday night this week about DBS. And the announcement itself said something really interesting and jarring to a lot of us, because the title of the post that it went with is DBS Score is dead. Gone. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. If y'all are wondering what's going on in the Wonders community, this is the place to be. Welcome to Wonders Workshop. Please go ahead and give the video a like if you can, and subscribe if you haven't. So what does it mean that DBS is dead and gone? Well, the system itself, the design meant to make sustainable gameplay that is a key of Wonders of the First is not gone. The phrase DBS score is. And for those of you who aren't aware, DBS is a term that has been said to mean a lot of things, but it is the system by which points are assigned to cards in Wonders of the First. And you have a total point value, basically a weight class that your deck can fight within, play within in tournaments, and it's how you can judge a deck's power level in a fairly easy and succinct way in Wonders of the First. You know, a typical competitive level deck, and most competitions are 1,000 DBS. A lower level deck might be 750. I think that's Vagabond. Stoneseeker's 1,000. I'm gonna mess this up. Then 1250 is Master, maybe, and then Immortal is whatever, like infinite DBS. And so I don't know if y'all have heard this or not, but I've called DBS things different things at different points in time. Deck balancing system, deck balancing score, dynamic balancing score, dynamic balancing system. I'm not sure that anybody's actually been sure what the term is for a while now. I know on the official announcement for the first time DBS was announced on the Wonders website, it was the dynamic balancing score. And that is very different than how most of us use it. And honestly, a lot of us have been saying DBS score, or, you know, that's like saying ATM machine or PIN number. It's a little bit redundant if it ends in score. If it had ended in system, not so redundant. But again, it was a whole lot of confusion on what it actually meant. And this first sentence in the blog post, this first paragraph really helps with that, explaining that. Every game as it grows reaches a point where clarity matters more than tradition. Wonders has hit that moment with DBS score. Over time, the term drifted. That's what I was just talking about. Players use it to describe both the card's value and the deck's overall weight, and the result was a conversation that felt as sharp as the system behind it. So we're fixing that. And if you don't know what DBS actually is, and you don't understand how the system works, I'll drop the link to the page for the Wonders How to Play in the description down below. And there's a really great video on that page. The thumbnail is Building a Sustainable CCG with No Reprints, explaining the dynamic balance score, DBS. So that's one of the original videos for the game. And so the change that is being made is that it is no longer going to be that DBS's dynamic balancing score. It's going to be deck building score. This is going to clarify, clean up some of the language, and hopefully make it more clear for people what DBS is. Now, I don't think this is going to change the fact that we're going to hear people saying DBS score. I hear people say PIN number. I hear people say ATM machine all the time. It's just a thing that happens. But I think it does help that there is a clarified statement and a specific name for what DBS means. It's been kind of nebulous, and dynamic balancing system or dynamic balancing score is not nearly as descriptive as deck balancing score, and so I think that will stick in people's heads a little bit better. So a smart move there because of that. Now, one thing that I think is really interesting in what this post is saying, and Romall, if you're in the comments, I would love to know what your take on this is. This post says DBS simply means deck balancing score, and it refers to the total value of your deck. One meaning, one purpose, clean and direct. Ultimately, it's just a change in official terminology, nothing else. And that makes perfect sense. But if it's only referring to the total value of my deck, what am I calling the value that each cards have? And maybe I'm being pedantic here, but it's definitely a question that popped in my head when I was reading this. Do the cards, obviously cards still have values to them. Are those, if DBS only refers to the total value in your deck, are those sub DBS values? I'm that's my one, like, is it a DBS value for the card? That's kind of my one question to go with this. Otherwise, I think it's a really smart move. Now everybody will know that there's a universal term for what DBS means, and hopefully it will be less confusing, because when you look at the term dynamic balancing system or dynamic balancing score, it's not obviously self-explanatory what it's doing. Deck balancing score tells you what it's doing. I think, there's a couple things that this is going to make easier moving forward. Communication to new people. And I think it's going to make things simpler, and clarity and ease of learning the game as the game grows in the next couple of years is going to be really important. If everybody's using a different term for what DBS means, it's going to get really confusing for new players, even if they all mean the same thing. As much time as it's going to take for us to just make sure that we wiggle it into our brains that DBS is deck balancing score. We as members of the community, I think, will be doing a great service to the game and to ourselves and to building the community if we get it in our heads. DBS, deck balancing score. And we use that consistently, and we make sure that it's consistent so that new players aren't confused, so that we're evolving with the game as the game is evolving, and so that it's clear for new players and players and collectors who are learning to play, all of the above. I think this announcement from Romall is really great. I think it's gonna add some clarity that we've needed with this. But like I said, and really the only question I have is, what am I calling the points given to the card? If the DBS is the total value of your deck, is the value given to the cards the DBS value of the card? Is it the points the card has? It's just one of those questions that I'm like, because there's so many other values that can be on the card. If you say the points the card has, that could be the wonder's power. It could be the cost. But none of this makes this a bad decision. I'm just wondering, my only question is the clarity there, and that's not a bad question to have. And honestly, if you just say the DBS value of the card, I think people will know what you mean. But like I said, Romall, if you're watching, feel free to let us know what we're supposed to say in the comments. So this is kind of what I got for you today. Just talking about this post, letting you know that DBS is dead. DBS Score is dead. And as always, please like, comment, subscribe, and keep being your wonderful selves.